In less than 3 years, we were awarded the #1 hostel in North America.
That's epic, guys.
Everything we did focused on guest experience, and then not having experience in the hostel industry ended up being one of our greatest gifts, because we looked at things from our eyes versus the industry's eyes.
What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I am your host, Mike Sjogren, here as always with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. E, what's going on?
Happy New Year. I hope you guys are off to a great start of the new year. I'll be just coming back from Medellin, Colombia, so I'm super excited. I'm spending 28th and the 31st there, and then coming home to one of my best friends from Italy being here for New Year's Eve. So I'm super stoked. And I am really excited for this year. Like 2025 is going to be a super fun year. Our Freedom Factory is coming up. You just went to see it today. And that's
good.
Surreal, man. Like, it's the idea of having a spot for us to like kind of gathered.
Yeah, so if you're not aware, if you haven't heard, we invested in a 10,000 square foot facility to build our own in-house training center along with our offices and stuff. And I'm super excited about it. It's going to be sick. It's going to be fun. It's basically my own version of Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory. So it's got pickleball courts, basketball court, golf simulator, a whole training center, office space, lounge area. It's pretty sick. And I'm super excited. It should be ready in late Q1, early Q2. So checking in on the construction with the boys this morning. Things are moving along. So yeah, man, I'm excited. And I'm excited for this episode too, because I think it's going to open people's eyes to start thinking bigger too. So I met Nate and Mike, I think at WealthCon last year. And then I was hanging out with them at Blake Daly's Boutique Hotel Con last year as well. And just really good guys, big thinkers, definitely savvy businessmen, and a keen focus on hospitality. You know, that classic book that you recommended to me, Unreasonable Hospitality, like, to me, that's what's driving their success. And they have a very unique model to build out a hostel portfolio with an exit at 400 million. And that may sound crazy, but I like it. And you'll understand why as we go through this episode, and how they really break down the model, how they came up with the model, and how they're execute on it, and how they've used case studies to prove it out essentially for themselves. And now they have their North Star that they're going after, with a real focus on unreasonable hospitality and just taking that guest experience to a new level, which it's almost a dichotomy. Like, when you think hostel and you think guest experience, they don't typically jive together. Like, I know for me, when I think hostel, I'm thinking like a nasty bed that I can pay $15 a night for, that probably haven't washed the sheets in 2 weeks, but that is not what they are doing. That is not what they are doing.
Not at all. And the other thing that I absolutely loved about them was this super clear vision on the hospitality side and what they're doing, but also as they created and built the team, a super clear idea of like, we want to be the best place to work in when it comes to hostel, and really going after this super high level of team members, super intentional with how they hire, super intentional on crisscrossing who they hire based on the hospitality that they want to offer. And he shared a story with one of his experienced coordinator that it's just, I think, is what every hotel, boutique hotel owner or hospitality owner wants to hear, right? When you have an interaction with one of your managers and a guest, that leaves you feeling like, okay, we're doing something really, really right. So yeah, super inspiring. Great one to start the year with, because if you are thinking about going bigger, these guys are the perfect example on like just having clarity, having clear focus, and just executing.
And going from zero to the #1 rated hostel brand in North America in just a few short years. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with Nate St. Cyr and Mike Russell. All right, Nate and Michael, welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, aloha.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I wish I had some of those aloha vibes. It is cold in Boston, maybe, but all good, man. All good. We got to connect a few months back at Blake Daly's Boutique Hotel Con, which was a lot of fun. And so super excited to have you guys on and dive into the journey and share your business model with the listeners, because I do think that it's unique and it's fun. And if you do it the right way, like you guys are doing, It can be obviously lucrative, but also systemized so that you guys actually have the time freedom. So, Nate, why don't we kick it off with you and just how did you guys get into this? And then we'll talk about the specific business model that you guys went with.
Yeah. Well, I think when we look at kind of our origin story, Mike and I both have our own individual backgrounds and everything that led up to a moment. But I think what people really care about is where they really go, whoa, what happened? In 2020, when the world kind of shut down, Mike and I took massive action. We took the contrarian approach to investing and we took our entire life's work. People would say that we maybe got lucky, but we really looked at it as we took our entire life's work, everything from what creating an unbelievable partnership is to all of our background in multiple real estate assets, Mike's background in short-term rentals. And as we were going out to actually scale and do something big, we went and looked at potentially purchasing an apartment building, and we wanted to get into the commercial real estate space. And the first property, we wanted to do it in our backyard here in Hawaii first. And the first property that we went to consider, it had gone under contract, but it was crazy because we picked up on this little comment in the description, and it said previously been run as a hostel. And we were like, what? Previously been run as a. So we asked the real estate agent the question. And because this thing went under contract, we never even got to look at it. But he picked up on that we had this interest because Mike's background in short-term rentals, he'd created time freedom in his life. And he'd been really, really successful with that asset class. And so we're like, well, wait a minute. Hotels with commercial real estate they weren't even on our radar because here in Maui there hasn't been a hotel in the past decade that sold for under 25 million. So we weren't even thinking like scaling in that direction. But all of a sudden we're looking at this apartment building and it has hospitality attached to it, a hostel, which we really knew absolutely nothing about. I knew zero about it. And we're like, well, wait a minute. Is there a way in which we can take what Mike has done in the short-term rental space and can we go and bridge that into commercial real estate and do the same thing with big fat margins, but yet also go and force equity? And it just got us, that moment really changed our lives. It got us spinning. And the rest of the story really, really went from there. Because if you look at what people, they kind of gravitate towards with our story, we took a $400,000 down payment. And in under 2 years, we forced over $4 million of appreciation in equity. We took in less than 3 years, we took a $400,000 down payment and we were able to stack multiple properties to a tune of $10 million worth of assets. That $400,000 down payment has generated now, if we look at our budget for next year, $800,000 of NOI or $500,000 of net income after debt service. So it's been life-changing. On the hospitality side of it, we really dug in for 3 years, and Mike he's an unbelievable champion executor and created processes and systems and has put us in a position to really scale. But in doing that, we focused on the guest experience first. Everything we did focused on guest experience, and then not having experience was in the hostel industry was like this ended up being one of our greatest gifts because we looked at things from our eyes versus the industry's eyes. And in less than 3 years, we've been awarded with the best small hostel in North America.
Wow. You were trailing up. I want to repeat that. Say that one more time, that last little bit.
Yeah. So in less than 3 years, like we didn't even know anything about hostels. But other than Mike, I think stayed in a couple when he was, 20 years ago after college. But I didn't even know what a hostel was, literally. I've been on Maui for 30 years. And in less than 3 years, we were awarded the number one hostel in North America.
That's epic, guys. That is absolutely epic. I'll use this analogy because, I've got some decent stuff in my house. Like I've got like a tonal machine and a Peloton, all this stuff. And I worked out at home for years, but it's just different. You know what I mean? And I was looking at different gyms and there's a couple that are very close to me. Like there's a YMCA that's decent. And then there's like this athletic club thing that's decent. But instead of those 10-minute drives, if I drive 20 minutes, there's this, I don't know, it's maybe 2 years old. It's this beautiful new like Lifetime Fitness. It's ridiculous. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. And I was going back and forth on it and I'm like, I know it's costs more, like whatever. It's probably $100 more a month. And I was talking to one of my coaches about it and they were like, dude, you know the importance of your environment. Like what environment do you want to be in? And I was like, you're totally right. And within, I don't know, 2 weeks of going there, you know, Danny in the background here, our videographer, like we're playing pickle all the time. I've met a bunch of different business owners. Like I met some jujitsu instructors, like real estate investors, like all these people. I'm like, these are my people, dude. Like, and I feel like if there was this hostel like you guys are talking about, and maybe I'm gonna go E and I are gonna go on a trip somewhere, like, I could see that, like, cool, like, we could go meet some cool people or whatever. If I want a private getaway with my wife, alright, this isn't gonna be the right fit, but creating that community environment, not people just shopping based on price, but, like, I'm gonna go to Maui and I wanna meet some other cool people, and maybe I'm gonna go by myself and I just wanna meet some other people. Like,
Yeah, I think
that's
those are
something to
good
think about.
points. I also think that it's really important in hospitality, no matter what you're representing, is to have a really clear understanding of your avatar. And we have that. Like we recognize very early. And if we look at the 20 to 30-year-olds, most of them are Gen Z, some younger millennials. But it's also important to understand the way that they view community. That generation specifically, their mindset is very different than mine or a lot of America, right? Their mindset, they've grown up in this world. Like Airbnb started changing the world while they were coming up. So the idea of staying in someone's house or a shared accommodation, jumping in an Uber in somebody else's car, like all of these things to them aren't new. It's just the way the world works, right? So their mindset, and because they're so technology based in their regular lives, their need and desire when they go have experiences to have true human connection and community, it drives them. So, our avatar and who we know we're marketing to, these are values that they really already have in this generation. And that's one of the things that really got us excited about not just our opportunity to develop our prototype here on Maui. But when we look at the market and when we look at the generation to who we're really marketing to, that there's really opportunity as a market as a whole in the United States. One of the things that from a mindset standpoint that I think that Mike's done an unbelievable job of, and just really it's kind of a culture within me as well, is our mindset is extremely strong where we have an unbelievable relationship with fear and an unbelievable relationship with failure, that it's like we want to, where you sense that, we like to step into it because that's where the good stuff happens. So I just wanted to point that out, that one example that Mike used has been extremely consistent through the building of this company.
We just recorded a podcast for year end on goal setting and literally talked about that piece of how most people set goals, but deep down they don't believe they can do them. So then they half-ass the effort or they quit at the first sign of resistance because deep down they don't believe that they can do it. And it's just BS between your ears, man. So I love that. I guess this is a good segue into kind of what we were talking about offline when we're thinking about teams. How are you guys operating this? Like, is this staffed? Is there a front desk? Is it remote? Like, what does the team look like to run this?
Yeah, so I did a meeting on this yesterday. It was really, when we look at our growth, it's like, holy, we have 38 people that work for us from part-time to full-time. Some of them are in our investment arm, but the bulk of them are on our operations side. And one of the powerful pieces about partnership, if you find a partner where you have complementary skills, complementary skill sets, that's really where the magic happens. Like we're aligned in our values and we have skills that overlap, but at the same time, he's a champion executor and builder of systems and processes, and I am a champion team builder. So when we really look at the way that we've built out, and we've done this with the help of a business coach and EOS, and Mike can kind of talk a little bit more about the specifics of that building. But I think it's important to recognize that these two components of building people and culture and then building the systems and processes, because I could get people pumped and aligned and all of those things where we're all going into war together. But then for the long term, how do you audit that? How do you follow through? How do you make sure that nothing slips through the cracks? And that's where Mike is just an absolute freaking beast. He'll go in and create all of the systems that make sure that it can be audited, that we can make sure that it's scalable. And so I think as we've come together, we've really done a nice job of.
He does hype you up really well. I can understand why Michael likes when Nate talks about him, because you do hype him up greatly. And it's a lovely partnership, right? And I think people you have fear around partnership, but I know, for example, with Mike and I love this. To me, this is nothing we do is really work. So I get to hang out with one of my best friends and I get to create amazing things. We have fun, we laugh, and then we continuously challenge each other. So do you have specific sectors where you're if we're in an argument, what happens? Is there a Hawaii thing that you guys do that you break up arguments? Who can go out surfing the longest? How do you kind of
Yeah.
settle an argument in this family?
Well, look, one thing about, I would say, aligning with champions and people that have champion mindset, you're typically dealing with strong people. And so Mike and I are both strong and difficult. We just are. I mean, I'm shooting it straight. We are. And so when you're strong and you're difficult, there's going to be those moments of resistance. But what I also think that was really, really important and is critical is that we both will self-reflect. I will be in the moment. We can be have the strongest moment of, okay, let's take some time from this. But by the next day when we circle back, it's I'm coming to the table and saying, I've reflected on this, and here's where I see that I'm kind of creating a challenge, and this is why. And I can see now your point of what's really important. And ultimately, I think what we've both said when we've had those really difficult moments, I think each time both of us have said, look, ultimately, if you believe that strongly that this is the right thing, I trust you, I will go with that. We've both been willing to do that in really intense moments. And that says a lot about relationship. And when we went into this long-term relationship, we knew that this is not just partnership isn't light when you're going to go and have the goal to build a $400 million company. It's we're committed. And when you're committed, then you're also committed to working through a challenge. And so I think that that's just an important core value that both of us have.
To come full circle back to the question that I was asking before, I know you said you guys have 38 people on the team. Do you have a front desk, or is it self check-in and I just want to understand overall how it runs?
It is not a staff light model at all. I mean, we have an area general manager. We have an assistant manager that has a housekeeping emphasis that then trains all of our part-time workers. So if we look at our larger site that does more revenue, Maui, there's going to be 6 full-time staff, and then there's going to be 16 part-time staff. So there's 24/7 reception. There's somebody there to, create feeling and energy. We have every single thing that we do, any event that's on site is led by a team member. We take people out during the day on guided activities, all by team members. So no, we are fully involved in the guest experience from a staffing standpoint.
Which makes sense, right? Because yes, it has to have the right design and physically look attractive. But one thing that I've noticed, anytime we travel, I'll go and figure out what are some of the best hotels in this area, and I'll stay there. And obviously they cost a lot more, but I'm always looking at what are they doing differently. And yes, the rooms will be nice and things like that. But any of the 5-star hotels I stay at, it is always the little touches and the staff on site that make the difference to give it the 5-star experience. Yes, having a nice shower and a comfy bed, that's a given. But to your point, if I gotta run downstairs, or if I gotta call down, shoot, I forgot my toothbrush and it's midnight, they're gonna send somebody up with a toothbrush kit. They're not gonna charge me for it. There's just certain little things that they do. We went up to the Omni, Mount Washington in New Hampshire. We're going up again after Christmas, and it had just snowed. and we weren't going to go skiing or anything, but they have this huge hill behind the hotel. I was like, hey, do you guys have any sleds? And they're like, we typically do, but they haven't been delivered yet for this season. They're coming next week, but there's a store right up the street. They called ahead, made sure that they had the sled, and I drove up and grabbed the sled. Like just those little things that aren't really costing them that much that just elevate that experience.
Yeah, no, I like the culture of who we hire and the alignment of value over obsessing over the guest first. That's like what our entire company is built on. It goes into every decision that we make, hiring, team building, everything. And although we don't go down and we're not in the hostel very often, maybe once a month. When I was down there last time, I was sitting there and then I this person came through and our receptionist, she's a guest experience supervisor, she came out from behind and she's like, "Oh my gosh, we got to talk." And they hugged and they were going through and I heard it was like this personal, you know, situation that was occurring and the person said, "Thank you so much for your advice. I mean, this is killer and I'll see you." And they talked about then future when they'll see each other. And so I said, "Was one of your family in town?" And she's like, "Oh no, that was just one of the guests." And I was like, "Gosh, dang.
For the
Like,
win.
what?"
For the win.
Like this is just like that is it was just a powerful moment of me going, "Man, this is the culture that we've created and the way that we hire, just the whole piece." I was really kind of one of those moments where you reflect and go, "Yeah,
Could
this is
you share real quick, Nate, on that? Because I know I struggled with this a lot at the beginning, and I know a lot of people are afraid of hiring. And I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning. Any tips that you would give people on maybe where you're finding your talent or how you're interviewing them or what that process looks like to find good people and onboard them?
Yeah, well, I will say that number one, just like reviews, we built our business based on the feedback of reviews. We also went into our concept of being a what's a differentiating factor is going to be the way that we build our team. And so let's go in with the goal first, and then we'll reverse engineer it. We are going to be the employer of choice in the hostel industry, right? So that first of all was the before we even had anybody, that was the goal.
The one thing that I'm curious about, right, is if somebody now listen to this and is like, okay, hostel sound like a cool idea to look into. What are some things that they should think about zoning wise? Like, did the property you guys ended up buying, was it zoned hospitality? Like, walk us through this, like, kind of not so sexy, but like, if somebody's listening to the show and wants some actionable intake.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's critical to us. We would have loved to have scaled the short-term rentals here on Maui, but very quickly they got just regulations just slammed, and so that is just imperative to our business model is we will look for high demand areas that have higher regulations for short-term rentals and then that's part of our buy box. Then we look for it has to be the zoning, it has to be hospitality. So we are zoned as a hotel and that's key because now our zoning is set. We also look for if this is your first venture into this, I think that it's critical that not only are you have the right zoning, but that you also have an existing hospitality use. Like if it's running as a economy type hotel, it's totally justifiable to turn it into a hostel. But if it's zoned for hospitality or hotel, but it's currently running as a multifamily or something else, typically that's going to take a change of use and the county is going to have the opportunity to weigh in. And that's where it gets based on where you are. That's where you're bringing in more risk. So if it's your first time going through it, highly recommend that it is, you look at the zoning, that it's hotel zoned and that it has currently being operated as hospitality.
Got it. And do you have any indication when looking at like going to speak to a city or a county, historically hostels, do they have a good economic indicator behind it versus like a hotel? Because obviously the county is going to care about that, right? It's going to be like, okay, like housing shortage, that's why Airbnb is getting banned in a lot of places. So if I'm going to convert it to a hostel, in your experience or based on the research you guys have done, does a city or county look at that as yay, good, as good as a hotel? Or they're like, I don't know, like, does the stigma of a hostel reflect there too? Or in your experience, that hasn't been an issue?
Well, I believe that this is from a community standpoint. We got a lot of community we went and met with past council members, and so not going necessarily directly to the county, but there was so much excitement about what we were doing because we really are a solution. If you really consider it, we are the solution to the person that's renting the bedroom in their home that maybe illegally, right? And that's taking away, because that room, I'm not talking about luxury short-term rentals, but I'm talking about who the everyday person would rent. Because here on Maui, we're on an island. So, I mean, everything here is really, really sensitive from a housing standpoint. So if somebody was going to go and rent a room in somebody's house off of Airbnb, well, we are the solution to that. Now we provide that person with, hey, we're going to be a way better accommodation, and we're going to open that back up for a long-term rental. So the community was really excited about that, number one. And then number two, but you have to educate them. Like they don't just they're going to have the same stigma as everyone. So the part of this is just, communication and having these conversations. But the second part of it is the impact that our travelers have. 1 out of 8, we did a study, 1 out of 8 of our travelers that stay with us have a rental car. So here they come and stay with us because we provide activities, we provide their transportation. And so we have all of these guests that come stay with us. And then what do? They go out in the mornings and they have coffee in the local cafes. They go out and spend money on the island, but they're not taking up that valuable infrastructure of creating excess, cars on the roadways and all of that. And those are the things that the community care about.
I love that. You guys have a big vision, right? You mentioned it, $400 million brand. So are you looking at players on the market like a Soho House to inspire how you guys are going about this and building this? Do you have plans on doing membership models or anything of that sort?
We had this goal of creating this hostel brand in Hawaii. And right at that time, it's pandemic, shut down, everything's crazy. I had started reading just whatever. I started going through and just reading books. And one of them was X, like old school. And, our $40 million Hawaii, how many beds it would take, went to, why are we limiting ourselves at 40? This is so stupid. So it instantly became 400 million. That 2 days later, Mike shoots me this article and he's like, oh my gosh, Generator just purchased Freehand for 400 million. And it was like, see, this is not crazy. This is confirmation. Like we are manifesting this. We are on the right track. We create this goal and 2 days later, this happens in this industry. So that's how that started.
We love that. Yeah. And so what's vision, guys? Where are you going to next? And is the general Hawaii kind of spirit, it's something that you're going to carry across to all the properties, or how are you guys envisioning growing and the different cities and the local influence? Because it sounds like you're very caring, which I love. There's this big heart component of what the locals need, which I find very inspiring, because it's yeah, we want to make money, but then there's also this very kind of behind your vision.
Yeah. Well, I think that when we created our original mission and vision, one of the things that was in there, one of our core values was to be able to pivot. So as we learn and as we gain new information, we're going to grow, but we're not the people that are going to grow at any cost. We're going to grow responsibly and sustainably. And so what we've recognized in building this is that there's more opportunity out there than just our growth in hostels. So we look at the end of the day, we've become experts in understanding that hospitality is a feeling, and by executing a feeling is going to create your success or not. And there's different avatars out there. Not everybody's going to be interested in a hostel, right? But there's certainly opportunity to go and purchase a hotel or an experiential lodging property. So we're currently going to grow as hospitality in general. We know now exactly, we feel like we've become experts with hostels, and we're going to continue to grow that part of our business, but we're also going to grow in some of these other avenues, and that's going to help get us there, and help get us there in a way that we're passionate about.
So good. So good. Well, Thank you guys so much for coming on. Well, the last question that we ask all of our guests is, what is your number one secret to success?
It's all about alignment. It's about building, recognizing that you alone it's not about you alone. It's about empowering other people. And so for me, the skill and gift of leadership is one that is to me, the secret to success, to really being able to grow and do special things.
So good. So good. Well, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. For the listeners out there, welcome to 2025. This one kicked off with a banger. And and Tate, whether you're going to do hostels or not, the principles that Nate and Mike shared today, you can apply it to your STR business. You can apply it to your hotel business. Either way, it doesn't matter. But there were so many nuggets in this one. Guys, thank you so much. And for the listeners, we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Ciao, guys.